Uh, can you explain your whole October? Uh, well, most of it, extremely busy. Uh, so it's just try and conceptualize. Uh, have been in an embassy siege for the last 4.5 years. It's a small embassy. Uh, the embassy is surrounded by a police and intelligence operation, of which there's numerous pictures and admissions by the British state. They spend about $6 million a year. They admit to spending about £4 million a year just on the covert and overt police surveillance. But of course, there's MI5, etc. They have robot cameras, quite sophisticated types that they've installed in different buildings, plainclothes police operating on the street, and they've done deals for which we have the paperwork with some of the opposing buildings, which are owned by Harrods, which is a big department store here, but Harrods itself is owned by the sovereign fund of Qatar. So it's not an easy environment to work in. Spying on the outside, some spying on the inside, informers, robot cameras, etc. And then during October, there was pressure applied by John Kerry and the US administration, and perhaps some other forms of pressure domestically within Ecuador that resulted in my internet connection being cut off and quite a increase in the security environment here in terms of people getting in and out of the building easily, etc. That's, I think, was a wrong thing to do for John Kerry to politicize the office of Secretary of State and try and use that to domestic political advantage by pressuring me in relation to my political asylum. WikiLeaks does not publish from the embassy, doesn't work from the embassy. I am a political refugee stuck in this embassy because the UK refuses to obey international law and respect my asylum rights. We publish from France, Germany, Netherlands, and so on, a wide range of countries, not Ecuador. So Ecuador is purely pressured because they are responsible for my physical security as a political refugee, which is pretty disgraceful. To be fair to Ecuador, Ecuador has denied that they were pressured. That's not what our sources say. And it's a small country, 16 million people, quite innovative Latin American country, with tough, standing up to the kind of pressure from the US and UK. But it has its own election, February 17, and you can see that it wouldn't want an allegation that it had interfered, which it hasn't, with a US election being used as an excuse by Hillary Clinton, who was the predicted president, to interfere in the election in Ecuador. So quite a tense security and diplomatic situation. In terms of the security situation, yes, there were conspicuously armed British police, which I took a photo of and which we published, parking their vans right next to the embassy, which they haven't done since back in 2012 when the first kind of standoff was in the embassy. So it's a kind of, show of force, presumably to make some kind of pressure for WikiLeaks to stop publishing. But we're set up to continue on regardless of what happens to me no one person in WikiLeaks can become a single point of failure. Why? Well, because we don't want to fail, number one. Number two, because if that person is perceived to be a single point of failure, it's dangerous for that person.